What's up, people? Sorry I've not done a video in a while. But and as we are back. Today I'm actually gonna probably be doing a couple of videos here. I'm reviewing 28 Years Later Bone Temple, and then I'm gonna review The Rip. But I felt like I needed to watch The Rip again because when I watched it, I was talking with friends. So I'll admit I was paying attention, but I was like on with people. So I want to give it another watch before I review that. But I guess really quick, we can do a little mini review of it. It is probably Ben Affleck's best movie in a long time. Like, it was action packed, it had a good mystery to it. Him and Matt Damon still got that great chemistry. Fun all around cast. I like the feeling. The only negative I have is obviously they even talked about it in the promotion that unfortunately these days with Netflix, movies do this thing now where they over like almost like I would say they over exposition because unfortunately they're catering to retards who they think are like just looking at their phone constantly, so they gotta constantly spell out the plot over and over. And there were moments of that in this movie. I don't think it was as bad with it like let's say a Stranger Things season 5, but it they had its moments there. But outside of that, really, and I guess the reveal was a little predictable, but I still think it's an all around really good movie. It's probably my favorite. Already, it's gonna definitely have a feeling. We'll see what other movies come out this year, but I could see it being part of my favorites list. And another movie, I'm probably not gonna review this one. This one I might just talk about really quick here. I saw a movie called Killer Whale. I saw the trailer for it like a month ago. It's about a killer whale that's aggressive. And the plot basically, if you remember Open Water with the movie about the sharks and people are like stranded in the middle of the sea, that is basically this movie, but instead of the shark, it's a whale. And I thought the girls did a decent job. They were likable enough. I actually thought it had some cool kill moments. I liked it a lot more than Primate. I thought the plot was basic. It was basic, but in a good way. I thought the open water aspect was done well, and the stranded aspect because I liked isolated horror. I I like, and surprisingly, they played it straight. Like they did kind of go more horror with it. I was expecting it to be a little bit like on the comedic side, a little bit, but I actually like they played it straight. And for a movie that is a bit more comedic, or for this type of movie too, the acting's actually not terrible. The her friend, the main girl's friend, isn't as good as the main chick, but I thought she was serviceable enough. So I recommend this movie if you want to kill like an hour and a half. You want to see some killer whale carnage, orca carnage. Orca from the 70s is probably a better movie all around just because it's just probably has a better script. But I do think this is still fun enough. Like, I would watch this again. Like, if I want to kill some time and just put something on in the background, I'd watch this again. So I'd give this one like, I'll give The Rip probably like an 8, 8.5 out of 10. I'd probably give this one like a 7, 7.5. Because y'all know me. I love killer animal movies. I do. I've always have. They're just fun, They're kind of movies. Yeah, you can kind of turn your brain off. I know. Like, I think I go in knowing not every killer animal movie is gonna be Jaws. Not every movie can be Jaws. Be like an actual good movie and still have some cool creature feature shit. Because a lot of these movies, I'm gonna be honest, I kind of go in knowing the acting's probably not gonna be the best. It's more about the animal carnage than, because let's be real, a lot of these movies are kind of B movies outside of like Jaws. I would say a lot of these movies, like I watched these on like the Sci-Fi Channel back in the day, and they would just be movies about killer animals, and they would lean more on the animal carnage than the actual, like, I'll say characters. A lot of the characters, you could Some of them are just straight up bad actors, or sometimes it's just decent acting or okay acting, and it's more about the creature carnage. And I would put this in that category. So I would give this 7.5. So for a creature feature, it's cool. I'm happy we're getting a little bit of a return. I felt like that genre disappeared for a while, outside of like shark movies. And even the shark movies we're getting were all like shit. Let's be honest. There were a lot of shit ones. Like for a while, outside like the Meg, honestly, I would say a lot of them were shit. So at least we're getting a creature feature, and that's not a shark. It's something different. So, but now to the main point of the video. We're reviewing 28 Years Later Bone Temple, the second part of this new trilogy. And I know a lot of people didn't like the first part of 28 Years Later. I liked it. I had my only part I really didn't like was the ending. I didn't like how it kind of jumped the shark. I felt like, I'm like, why the fuck did it turn to Power Rangers? And this one had this problem even more. And I felt like 28 Years Later had a little bit, but I still felt like the infected were still effective relatively in that movie. It was only in the ending I felt like they go a little retarded with the Jimmies. That's what I'm going to call this cult, because that's basically who you follow in this movie is the Jimmies. Mainly, I think his name is Spike, who you remember that was the kid from the first movie. In this, he's a side character. He's not even really the focus. It's almost like the focus. I think the girl's name is Ink. She's one of the Jimmies. She kind of becomes like his motherly figure, and essentially they're the two who you follow. So it's not even really about Spike. Spike becomes a background character, and one of the bigger issues I have, the infected. Yeah, can't do. I'm not saying you can't have them get killed, because they get killed even in the first 28 days later, but in 28 days later, 28 weeks later, even 28 years later, at some points, the infected still feel like a threat. Yeah, you could take one of them out. It's like an effective zombie movie, right? Yeah, you take a couple of them out, but they eventually mob. You don't have that in this movie. The infected are straight up just cannon fodder. They're just easily killable. The only one that's kind of effective is Samson, and even then, which that's the other plot of this movie, kind of. You follow Dr. Ian, which that's Ralph Fiennes, who I thought had a good performance. And if the film was just about him, and maybe if you every now and then cut to the Jimmies, I would have been fine. Or if the plot had been Spike had gone to, it was Ian and Spike. That should have been the movie, honestly. The more I think about it, it should have been about Ian and Spike. Ian takes Spike like as his own because of what happened with his mother. And the fucked up thing is, if I'm being honest, 28 years later, if you cut out the part with the Jimmies, you had the setup for that. Because he does see Ian, because obviously what happens with his mother in the end of the first one, or the first part, or 28 years later. So why the fuck didn't you just go with that? Why did we need to follow this cult? One, they're not likable. The main Jimmy, I'll admit, put on a good performance. I think it's the same dude who was in Sinners, who I didn't like that movie. I thought he was good in that. I didn't care for him to follow him just because they were all shitty people. It did the thing that I'm kind of tired of in zombie films and just post-apocalyptic stuff in general. That's partially why I'm tired of the genre. Is it did the humans bad thing. It did the all humans bad. It's not the monsters and the infected that are the problem. It's the humans, and they did that because the Jimmies are just terrible people. There's a scene where they kidnap these three people because they take over their house, but then one of them tries to fight back, so they kidnap them. And then there's a scene where Ink has to go back, and you see like an infected charging at her, and she just kills it in 2 seconds. It's like, you could have made this a cool little chase. Nope. She just slices it, and then that's it. And then it's not like more show up. And they're barely in the movie. So that's even the other problem. It's not that they're just cannon fodder. It's they're barely in the movie. And it felt like this was weird for the sake of weird, but not in a good way. Because I can take a level of weird. You know? There's weird. I'm okay with weird stuff if it's still good and actually still has a point. I feel like this was just weird, but almost like they wanted to make this like some artsy movie. It felt like it was trying to be an artsy movie. It's an artsy movie disguised as a 28 insert time here movie. That's what this feels like to me. It doesn't feel like it's part of the 28 days years later franchise. It just doesn't. The Infected, which are such a big part of the other three films, like even in 28 years later, I felt that a little bit, that they did feel a little cannon foddery at times, but they still were a threat. They still kill a lot of people in that last movie. They're barely in this. So yeah, so what Dr. Ian does, he kind of uses a drug which essentially turns the infected back. He basically is a way back for them to go human. And that's what happens. He forms a friendship with it, and eventually Samson becomes human again. There's some cool action scenes, like the scene where Samson's fighting off other infected when he's like on the bus. I thought that scene was kind of cool, but that was like the only really cool scene. As much as I love, because there's a scene where they play Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. It's the scene where Ian's doing this weird dance. That's where movie lost me too. It's like, as cool as that song is, it felt like this is just a out there scene, and it didn't really do anything. It's well acted, but I'm questioning how people are saying this is a good movie. I've even seen some takes that this is better than 28 Years Later. I'm like, how? 28 Years Later at least still felt like it was part of the franchise. While I didn't love the ending, it still felt like it was part of the franchise. This is not. This almost just, it's like I said, it's artsy, I would say borderline pretentious movie cosplaying as a 28 movie, because it really isn't part of it. The Infected are barely a part of this movie. You had likable characters. Yeah, you had your terrible people even in the other films, but the Infected were still the threat, and that's what I liked. Especially the first two. Yeah, you had fucked up humans in 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, but the Infected were still the main vocal point and the main threat. You don't have that here. It's just shitty people. And I also felt like, as much as I like gore, and I don't mind torture scenes if it has a purpose, but there's a torture scene because they, like, going back to the people they kidnap, you see them torture them by, like, they use like a carving knife or whatever, and they're like carving into the people's skin. And it was that scene, I'm like, okay, this is just a little much, even for me. I can handle violence, but this is just violence for the sake of it. And I'm even okay with, like, I'm even okay with violence for the sake of it if it's still cool. This is just, look how torture we can get, and we can look how, like, I felt like they went too far almost with it, and it doesn't feel like it's part of the franchise. I don't like this movie. I'm sorry. The more I think about it, I don't like this movie. I don't ever plan on watching this again, and I was hoping this would be decent, at least, because, I had my issues with Years, but I still relatively liked it. But I'm like, this kind of completely turned me off of even wanting to finish the trilogy. Like, I'll say this, Nia DaCosta directed this, probably inherently is her best movie, because compared to, like, she did Candyman, the really shitty Candyman reboot, which was BLM Candyman. She did The Marvels, so by default, this is her best movie, but it's still not really good compared to the other 28 movies. Like, I don't ever plan on watching this again. If I do watch the third one, because I'll say this, spoiler, Cillian Murphy, or Killian Murphy, however you want to say his name, is in the movie. He shows up in the very end. He has to save Ink and Spike from being attacked by the Infected. And that is the only moment where it kind of feels like, okay, now we're actually doing this movie. But the problem was, that wasn't the whole movie. That was the very fucking end. And that was only for like 5 minutes, and he's with his daughter. His daughter asks, oh, do we need to help? Should we help him? And he's like, of course. And then they spring to action, and I'm assuming when they do the third one, that is probably where the film's going to start. And maybe I'm hoping with the third one, I might still watch it, even if I didn't really like this one. I'm hoping, because I think it's Danny Boyle again, I'm hoping he goes back to what he was doing, even with 28 Years. Get rid of the Jimmies. Do not even reference them again. I think that whole plot needs to just be done, because that whole plot line was stupid. I think that's what really, in my opinion, that is what holds this film down for me heavily, is the Jimmy stuff. I just don't give a shit. I'm tired of the humanity is bad in these kind of stories. It's boring. I want to watch creature shit. Like it, the infected were such cool antagonists. In this, they're nothing. They're cannon fodder when they are on screen, and they're barely in the movie because we had to focus on human bad again. And the fucked up thing is, you could have both because the 28 days and weeks did that relatively well, but no, you just doubled down on it. I did not care to follow the Jimmies. There are some good performances. Like, on a technical level, I guess this is a good movie. It has good acting, good performances, it's shot well, it has all that stuff right. But I'm sorry, as a movie, subjectively, on, like, overall, outside of the technical shit, it's just not good to me. I didn't like the direction they went with this. And I even remember I was watching it once, but I was on with people. So I felt like, okay, maybe that's why I wasn't liking it, because I was kind of talking to people and still trying to pay attention to the movie. So I tried watching it again on my own, and it still did not hit. It's still not a good movie. I did not like the direction they did. And I don't like what they did with Spike. You had such this, like, development with this character, and he's nothing in this movie. He doesn't really even do his own development. It's almost, he's carried by the girl, who's the girl, I think her name's Ink. I could be wrong, but I think that's what her name is. She was the one almost doing everything for him. And even him, though, like, even he killed the infected relatively quick. And yeah, he was trained, because even in 28 years later, but I would have liked him to struggle a little bit, because he's still a kid. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. I all around just did not like this movie. I didn't like the direction it went. It was too fucking weird. The Jimmies are shit characters that I just did not want to follow. The main leader, the Jimmies, good actor. I thought he relatively did a good performance, but I wish he just played a different character. I think I would almost like it more. He could still be in the movie, but he just needed to play a different character, and we just do not do this whole Jimmy plot, because I just don't care about it, and that bogs this film down hard, because that is like a big focal point of the film. Yeah, you get Ian's storyline, but I felt like, if we're gonna be honest, the Jimmies have more of a focus than that, because there's a portion of the film where Ralph Fiennes kind of disappears, or he's not focused on as much. It goes back to the Jimmies mainly, so that's why I'm like, if you had just cut that plot out and had it be he took care of Spike, and it was about them two, surviving this apocalypse, I think that would have been a far more interesting plot. Or you have the Jimmies, but they're the villains, if you have to have human villains. I would have rather them just did it that way than how they did it. Because I don't care about the Jimmies. Every time they were on screen, I just did not give a shit. I was just like, can we cut back to Ralph Fiennes? And the Samson plot could have been good if that was the focus of the movie. But no, we kept trying to, like, cut back and forth. And I felt like we weren't even cutting back and forth. Like I mentioned, he almost disappears for like a good almost 20-30 minutes at least. Yeah, I did not care for this movie at all. But I saw someone have a good title for this movie, 28 Years Later, Boner Temple. And that's, yeah, they also do double down on the dick shit, which I just didn't. I thought that shit was weird in the first one. In 28 Years Later, I didn't really like it here. It's just, but outside of that, let's I guess we can get started on the actual review now. So the movie starts off basically with the Jimmies, kind of basically where we left off, and you see him do like a basically the leader forces Spike to have a fight with the guy, and he ends up stabbing a dude. No, actually, no. I think it's a flashback of the main Jimmy and how he became the leader, essentially. You get a flashback of that, and then we jump ahead, and And I think that's my other thing with this movie. It's not paced well. I feel like it is all over the place at times. Like, it's not as bad as which that might be a movie I might actually review too. That is going to be a rant. We'll talk, but actually, no. I might do a mini review on that. I'll do that one in the end though, because I'll admit I'm not a Silent Hill expert, so I probably shouldn't do a whole video on it. So I'll just probably talk about it in the end. I felt like this movie was all over the place at times. So we have to see Spike kind of survive, and we see Ian basically still doing the same thing and adhering to his bone temple. We see him get spotted by Samson. Actually, no, there's a scene before that where we see a group of hunters or like survivors trying to go through. And this is probably another really good scene because it's the only other time in the movie that it felt like it was part of the franchise. They're trying to survive and they run into Samson, who's the alpha of the infected, and he ends up he straight up pulls a dude's head off, and you see like the spine, like just like that. Thought that shit was cool. And then yeah, going back, that's when he gets spotted by Ian, and he uses like a not a trank gun, but he like does the blow thing, which shoots out the trank, and he ends up using drugs, and you see him basically get high with Samson. So I thought that was another scene that was kind of funny, just because Ralph Fiennes' performance in it really made it funny. But then back to the Jimmies, they take over this old dude's house, and basically, eat their food and are belligerent, and they're forced to try to make them like dinner and stuff like that. And the guy in the house tries to basically, he ends up throwing, I think he throws hot oil or whatever in a pan on one of them, causing a big fight obviously, and then they all basically get kidnapped. And that's the scene I was telling you about where Ink has to walk back and I think do something. The movie is just kind of all over the place. That's why it's kind of hard to do a normal review where I go through scene by scene, because it really is just kind of all over the place. It's not as bad with it, but I felt like the Return of Silent Hill had the same problem, where it's this is happening now this thing's happening. I don't think it's as bad here, but it does have that a little bit, where shit is just kind of happening. So we see Ink kill one of the infected, and that's my problem. The infected are barely in this movie, and we cut to Ralph Fiennes, working on it and finding his temple. And I would have rather that had just been, he should have just been the focus of the movie, because he's a great actor, and at least, I feel like he would have carried the movie much better. And like I said, you could have had have him taken Spike. It would have made more sense if you cut out that whole Jimmy ending from 28 years later, where he meets them, and it's just the scene of him after his mother. You have the setup for him to take him in, and they just decided not go with that. Because I'm more interested in his plot, but I feel like it's very little, because you get a little of him in, especially in the beginning. I do feel like he gets a little bit of focus. But once we get to that middle portion, and he comes back towards the end, but there's a middle portion where he does disappear, and it's more about the Jimmies again. And I'm sorry, every time they're on screen, I don't give a fuck, because I didn't like it in the end of 28 years later. So it's now I'm forced to follow these fucks, and like I said, they make the infected look like a joke because they just kill them in 2 seconds. Like I said, there's scenes where they're barely running into him. And if you do run into him, it's one at a time. The only time you felt like they were swarming is the scene with Samson later on in the movie. But outside of that, it was strangely, they just kind of come one at it. Like the scene with Ink where she kills one of them. Not another one doesn't show up or anything like that. Even though in the other films, every fucking time they're on screen, it's not just one. There's multiple. If one's near or there, that means there's others. But we're not going to do that this time. It's what the fuck, dude? It was it feels convenient when you do shit like that. It'd be like in another zombie movie where you run into no, dude, unless it's like a population where it's entirely gone. But the zombies are in packs most of the time. Rarely do you just see one, or even just like two. You would see a bunch of them. And the other movies followed that, but for whatever reason, in this one, I don't know why they felt like they had to cut out the infected and lower their screen time. I don't know if it's because they wanted to focus on humanity bad, which actually now the more I think about it, I think that's what they wanted to do. I think they wanted to just focus on human bad, but it's so fucking retarded because the other films, especially the first two, did that. But also still had a mix of the infected still being a part of the movie and are a big threat. In this, they're barely in the fucking movie. And that's why I'm just questioning how people could say it's a good movie. Like I said, on a technical level, I guess, like it's well acted and all that shit, and it's well shot and it has all that shit right, but I just feel like that's not the only things, at least to me, that's not the only things that make a good movie. You know, like, yeah, you can get the technical shit right. I feel this way about wrestling too. You can get the technical shit right, but if I'm not interested in the story or the characters, that doesn't. Technical shit, who fucking cares? If I don't give a fuck about the characters, then I don't give a fuck about the movie. Sorry. In my opinion, getting the story and characters is far more important than even yes, have good acting and really good acting and good performances and I don't mind obviously having everything shot well, but I'm gonna be real with you, it's not really hard to shoot shit well in 2026, 2025, 2026. Because this was probably shot in 2025, so it's like, and it just, I'm gonna say it too, another issue I just thought about, it does not feel like a second part of a trilogy. It just doesn't. It almost feels like a side story. And I think if they had just I would have rather them had just led with this, just you know what, this is a side story. It's not really a part two, but they marketed it like it's a part two of 28 years later. But if I'm being honest, it doesn't feel like it. It feels more like a spin-off. The only part two that is continuing it, the only thing that it's continuing on is some of the characters, like obviously Dr. Ian and Spike. But outside those two characters, and I even feel like with what they're doing, it still feels like a spin-off more than, oh, they're continuing their arcs from the previous movie. I think Ian kind of is the only one that kind of still feels like he's continuing his arc, but Spike doesn't. He becomes a background character. It's more about that ink chick. It's almost like an ensemble movie, especially once we're focused on the Jimmy. So they're torturing the people in the barn. Spike gets grossed out, so Ink kind of takes him away and just kind of talks with him while the rest of the Jimmys torture the group. But the lady that was there, I guess they didn't, for some reason, didn't notice she was in the house or whatever. She followed them to the barn and basically tries to free him. And the dude that, dumped the oil, they let him get down and he ends up fighting one of the other female Jimmys, and basically she beats his ass and has him down for the kill. But the lady who's like hiding and is seeing everything, she notices like a wrench, which has like a sharp thing. She uses that and impales the girl. And the dude ends up getting one of the oil tankers and he lights it on fire, burns one of the Jimmys, but then he ends up getting shot with an arrow right to the chest. Oh, I forgot to mention. There's a scene where the Eek chick ends up, because this is during her walk back, right? She notices, she finds Dr. Samson playing and talking with the leader, the Alpha, Samson. And she basically knows where his hideout is now. So I forgot, I should have mentioned that. So I just wanted to mention that really quick. So back to the barn. It's on fire. Everything's burning. So some of the other Jimmys get injured. And Spike chases the girl but he decides to let her go. And unfortunately, when his guard's down, I think he gets like stabbed, but not in like a vital area. He just gets stabbed like in the side or something where it's not super vital, because he's able to like walk it off later. Yeah, he decides to walk, but yeah, so he gets stabbed, and she ends up running away. Obviously, and you could say, well, why did she stab a kid? But he's part of this group that killed a bunch of her friends, so I guess it's like, you know, I guess, and it's just survive world, and maybe she thought he was. It could also be she thought it was a ploy, it was a tactic, so she just decided to, yeah. So like I said, she doesn't stab him in like a vital area, it's like on the side or something, and then he has to go back to the leader, and Jimmy's basically about to have him killed when he decides, hey, tells him about Ian, where he knows where Ian's lair is and all that, and that's where they scout out his lair. And this is basically where we get towards the end of the movie, essentially. And um this is where we see Samson essentially kind of turned back into a human, and but he's still super strong. Manages to fight off a bunch of infected, and this scene was really cool. It's really cool violence, some cool action. But this is the only scene that felt like that was cool. I didn't. That's the thing. I actually like this story, but it's muddled with. It's in the middle of this fucking shit story with the Jimmies, and I think if you had just cut that shit out, focused on Ian, had Spike there, and also do this story, I think this would have worked better, because I actually like the story of this. So it's not like necessarily I hate the story all around. It's just muddied with the shit fucking Jimmy story. So unfortunately, the story gets, at least to me, overshadowed by how bad the Jimmy story is. Because I actually enjoy this storyline, but this scene, and then obviously the scene towards the end with Samson, are really good. Once again, it's muddied with the Jimmy shit, so it's hard for me to really call it an overall good movie when this wasn't the main focus of the movie, or even one of the second big plots of the movie, instead of the shit Jimmy story that we had to follow these fucks around. Because like I said, they get so much focus. It's like every time they're on screen. So the next morning, this is one of the scenes where Jimmy or Spike actually makes his own decisions. He decides, yeah, I can't fuck with these people anymore. And I think he also feels like, yeah, they're gonna kill me. So he decides to run off. But one of the other Jimmys, hears him. So while he's on his own, actually initially, he gets attacked by an infected. Once again, conveniently, there's only one. And they're in like the middle of the woods, greenery basically. You're telling me there wouldn't be a bunch of them there? No, just conveniently, there's only one. And I would say Spike takes it out relatively quick. And if this was the only scene of the infected getting taken out, he actually wouldn't really have a problem, because I can chalk it up to he has learned and he was trained in this. So, and by now, obviously, I feel like he would be kind of good at killing him. So, okay, if this had been the only scene like that in the rest of the movie, a lot of the infected were actually a threat. Okay, I actually wouldn't have a problem with this, but it felt like this is when every other scene of the infected are just getting taken out in 2 seconds. If it was this scene and the Samson scene were the only scenes where the infected kind of got taken out quick, I would have been fine with it. And the rest of the movie, they're actually a threat, I wouldn't mind. But it wasn't just these two scenes. It was a lot of the movie. They were just taken out in like 2 seconds. And it was just disappointing. When the only scene of the infected being a threat is the start where Samson pulls that guy's head off, but once again, he was an alpha. So it wasn't even just one of the regular infected, because even in the first two movies, they didn't even do the whole alpha thing. They were all a threat. Even the last one, which did do the alpha thing, the other one still felt like a threat, because at the end of the day, they could fucking swarm you. They don't feel like a threat at all in this movie, so this is just another scene of them just being weak. It just hurts the movie. So he takes it out pretty quick, And then one of the Jimmies who noticed he disappeared attacks him and basically tries to kill him. And he's like, you know what? No one's around. I'm gonna fucking kill you now. Because he blames him for his friend getting killed, right? Ink comes in and basically kills the guy, and then they go back like nothing happened. And this is when going back to when they spying on Ian's hideout, and then that's when they decide to go in at night. So yeah, the Samson scene was really cool because the Samson scene was basically after this, so that scene was pretty cool. And then yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of cut to the ending. So they confront Ian and they were like, I'm gonna take over this shit. And this is where we get the dance, which cool scene, right? It was I like Number of the Beast, and if this had been the only really out there scene in the movie, I would have been fine. But the movie all around was out there, but not in a good way. And I felt like if this had been the only out there thing, I would have been like, okay, this is out there, but in a good way. And it's the only scene I was like that. But the entire movie was like that. So it's just, don't get me wrong. It was cool hearing Iron Maiden. Don't get me wrong. I like Iron Maiden. So I have no problem hearing Iron Maiden in a movie. But once again, that's not going to get me to go back to your movie because I can just listen to that song on YouTube. If you notice, if you know me, just because a movie plays a cool song and if the movie's still shit, I'm not going to go back to that movie. Or even if, but the scene's cool. It's like, but I can just listen to the song on YouTube. I don't have to go back to even just that scene to listen to the song. I could just listen to the song on YouTube. Like going with this scene, I can just listen to Number of the Beast on my own. I don't need to watch this shit. I don't need to watch this scene to hear that song. Yeah. After Ian does get stabbed, and this is where Ian turns on the leader, and he gets killed pretty quick. Or he gets like stabbed, and the other members are pretty much killed by her pretty quickly because they start trying to attack the kid, right, and all that. And Spike comforts Ian. I think Ian says a couple words to him before he fades. And then this is where we get the shot of Samson while the main Jimmy is bleeding out, kind of carrying him and almost giving him like a nice burial, and because he saw him as his friend, and then he comes back and basically kills the main Jimmy because I think the main Jimmy gets like spiked on the tower or the bottom of it. And then yeah, he's coming because I think he ends up getting drugged by the guy before he dies. And then yeah, he ends up getting killed by Samson. And then we go to the actual ending. So we see Cillian Murphy, assuming this is the same character from the first movie. He has a kid, he's teaching her, and then they hear noise outside, and then you see Ink and Spike getting chased by the infected. And this is probably the only other scene where they actually feel like a threat. And it feels like, okay, now this scene feels like it's part of the actual franchise. Like, this feels like, and it sucks that there wasn't more, like, scenes like this in the movie. Even if you still had some of that weird bullshit, you could have still did that. If you still had more scenes like this, even without Cillian Murphy, just scenes like this in general where the infected they have to try to survive, I would have still liked the movie relatively, even with some of the weird shit in it. But they just did the weird shit and none of the zombie shit until this point in the movie, really. And it's like, this is the very fucking end of the movie. It's disappointing. Like, you wait till the end to give me what I want. I don't like that shit. You wait till the last basically 5 minutes to give me what I fucking want. It's like, are you kidding me? We could have, I'm not even saying it had to be the whole movie. I'm still saying you could have had your weird bullshit in there if you wanted, but just had more scenes like this throughout the movie. Have a really good chase scene at the start, even a good one in the middle, and then Obviously, you can still have the whatever. You can even have the same fucking climax and then have this scene. I would have been fine, but you didn't. So it hurts the movie, unfortunately, that this is the only time that I feel like this is part of the franchise. So they notice the daughter asks, "Oh, should we help him?" And he says, "Of course." And then they basically gear up to help him, and then it cuts. So this is probably where the movie's gonna start once we get to the third one, and I'm hoping that third one is actually good and it goes back to its roots. Be more about the infected again. I almost borderline don't even want a human villain in this one. Have it just be about the survival. And if you want to do a human villain, do it towards the end like you did in the first one. Is like those army guys in the first one, they don't really do bad guy shit till way in the end. So most of it, it's about them just trying to survive the infected, and that's what I think. Hopefully the last one will go. Get no more of this weird shit, please. I'm hoping they got a lot of that weird shit out of their system, and then we can just go back to basics. So I'm still gonna watch the last one because I think with if Danny Boyle's directing it, it could still be good. Because that's why I still feel like 28 days years later was still relatively effective for me because it still has Danny Boyle's directing in it, and I just feel like, and I think that's partially why this one didn't work for me because it didn't have that Danny Boyle touch to it. It just didn't, because he's really good with survival stuff. Because he didn't just do 28 Days Later. He also did, if you've seen the movie The Descent, which also has really good survival stuff in it. He's really good at that shit, and this one didn't have that, so kind of makes sense. So overall, I did not like this movie. It's good on the technical stuff, but it just too much of the Jimmy's shit really held the plot down. I'm already over like Human Bad, and they just tripled down on that shit. And I don't like what they do with the infected in this movie, how they're just cannon fodder. They're only really effective in like 2 scenes. It's really disappointing, and one of the scenes is in the last 5 fucking minutes. You know what I mean? One of them is in the last 5 minutes of the film. Yeah, like the fact that one of the good scenes is the last bit of the film, not even last bit, the last 5 minutes before the credits is bullshit. I don't like how they're just treated as cannon fodder in this movie either. Yeah, not saying humans aren't able to kill them, but they overwhelm you, just like, in zombie films. You can kill a couple of them, but they eventually swarm you, and that's what makes them effective monsters in movies, because they have the numbers. And they didn't lean into that there. I don't like how in some scenes it was so obviously plot convenient that there's only one. They only ran into one, and this was like 2 or 3 times in the movie where they only conveniently run into one. The Jimmy character. The only time they only swarm was when with the Samson scene when he fully deturns or turns back, human. Outside of that scene, a lot of the times you see him, it may be the scene kind of in the beginning. You only see like one, and it's very convenient. Like, what? Every other film, we saw them in bunches, but all of a sudden, you only see one at a time. Get the fuck out of here. Especially the scene with, as much as I like I like that Spike was trained, I thought it was kind of corny that there was only one. You're telling me in the fucking woods, there's only one of them. Where the woods would be a perfect place for them, especially how they've already talked about how they have dens and they breed and all that. The woods would be the fucking first place they would breed and have a bunch of them. So there'd be a bunch of just in general around in the woods. No. Conveniently, there's only one. Get the fuck out of here, dude. It's like, come on, movie. So I was disappointed with that shit. There was no tension. It didn't feel like a horror movie either. It's just artsy movie disguised as a 28 years later movie. That's what it felt like to me. It just was, and I think it really makes me appreciate even more 28 years later, even with some of the issues I had with it. At least it still felt like it was part of the franchise, and it still felt like a horror movie. There were still horror elements in it. I didn't feel like there's really any horror elements in this outside of humanity bad. I guess that's the horror element this time around, which is bullshit. So yeah, if I were to rate this movie, I'll give it a 5 out of 10, just because it is still well made. It's still well acted. I can't be like, oh, it's a 3 out of 10, a 2 out. No, it's not that. It's not that bad, but it's definitely a 5. I can't get it any. Objectively, I don't think I can give it any lower, but I'm definitely not going to give it any higher. I can't give it a 6 even. It's a 5. It's well made, it's well acted, but on a technical level, they got that shit right. But as a movie and a story and the characters and everything else, and what they do with the infected, I think they fail at it. And I definitely do not plan on watching this again. If the third one's actually really good, and if it does come out, then if the third one's really good, I'm probably going to only watch 28 years and then whatever the last one is, and I'll look at it as like a fucking 2-part movie instead of a trilogy. Because this one doesn't even feel like a second part of a trilogy anyway, so it fails at that too. So in my mind, it's going to be, if the third one's good, it's going to be a 2-part, or if the third one's dog shit, I'll just see these as 4 films. That's it. Because even 28 years later, and I'll just cut the fucking Jimmy ending. I'll just have it end with Spike's mom dying. In my opinion, that's going to be where the film ends, if the third one's shit. But if the third one's good, it's a 2-parter. And I'll just ignore this movie. So either way, I'm ignoring this movie. So, but yeah, guys. The other video I'm probably gonna do, I might try to do it tonight. If not, I'll probably maybe do it around the same time. I will review. I think we'll do. You know what? I think I do feel a little rainy, so let's do Silent Hill. I think we'll do that one next, and then after that, I'll do the Rip. And I'll try to do that one. If the Rip will probably be on the weekend, if I'm being honest. But yeah, so, but we'll at least do Return to Silent Hill either tonight or tomorrow. I'll probably try to do it tonight, but if I do it tonight, it's gonna probably be late. So, other than that, guys, I was really disappointed in this. It's probably, even though the year just started, there's some movies I'm anticipating, but I don't know if I'm going to be as disappointing as this. I'm going to probably say this is probably already my biggest disappointment of the year. So I'm going to probably just title it that. Because unless something else comes out, like if Werewolf disappoints, that's going to suck, but I'm not expecting it to. You know, it may not be as good as I want it to be, but I still think it'll be a good movie because Robert Eggers relatively still makes good stuff. So I feel like I'll, in some varying degree, will like it. So in Evil Dead Burn, I'm looking forward to it, but it's not going to be my biggest disappointment, even if it is disappointing. So no, I'm going to say it's this one because I really somewhat was still hoping this would be good just because how good the first one was, and I was already hearing positive buzz even from people in my community saying it was good. And then I watched it and I was just like, it's not. So it's already my biggest disappointment of the year relatively. I just don't see anything else that I'm looking forward to being as disappointing as this. Because other stuff that I am looking forward to is more on a smaller level, right? So, yeah. But anyways, guys, I will subscribe to Pin Down Podcast. We will be live Saturday for our podcast, and we'll explain why we've been absent, at least within the last week. So we'll talk about that, and yeah. And we'll see what's going on with Cowman Reviews. I don't know when we're going to go live next, so I'll keep you posted about that. But for right now, just subscribe to Pin Down Podcast. We'll for sure be live Saturday. So. Alright, y'all. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.